Now, what I understand is that when we put it on Zoom, it takes about 20 seconds for it to show that it's going live. So I'm going to use my phone.
It says now it's streaming live on Facebook.
Oh, perfect. Yay, I can see us.
And I just got a notification that you tagged me. Let's see.
Perfect. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first interview of my Facebook Live series, interviewing small business owners and their journey to the beginning, to how it started, the ups, the downs, the successes, the failures. So our first guest is Mr. Mat Trenchard, and he is with Senna House Buyers. I met Matt a while ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Yeah, probably 5 or 6 years.
Through real estate. And if you've been following along, you knew that I once worked at a mortgage company, people who lend money to people who flip homes, right? They flip homes, acquire rental properties. And so Noble, the company that I still work with, they lend the type of money to those people. And Matt, well, he'll tell you more about it, but Matt is somehow in the mix of all of that. And so
it's a secret.
I'm gonna allow him to take the floor. Now, I've never done a webinar on Facebook Live before, so I am going to
give it a whirl.
Give it a whirl. I'm gonna try to follow along with y'all's comments because there will be an opportunity at the very end to ask your questions. And so if you do have any of those, feel free to type them into the chat box. Like I said, I'll be following along. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So I have a few questions for you, Matt, but the very, very first one is, tell us who you are. Who are you and what do you do?
Oh, man. Well, like you said, Mat Trenchard, Senna House Buyers, the name of my company. You know, what's interesting, I think one thing I'll point out from the beginning is, unlike, I believe, everybody else on your panel, I actually was not the founder of my company. So I got started in the real estate business. Well, I got started in the real estate business in another company, for a property management company, doing accounting, because I got an accounting degree and I knew the owner. But I started with Senna House Buyers just as a sales guy. And as soon as I got involved, I was like, this is it. This is what I want to be doing. I love what I do. And very, very quickly started taking on more and more responsibility. The founders and I we seamlessly worked very well together, and over the years ended up becoming a partner. And as of January 1st of this year, I'm the sole owner of the company. And so I had a very unique journey in that. And so, you know, what does Senna House Buyers do? The mortgage company Erica mentioned, you know, they finance real estate investment properties. So rental properties, or people trying to flip houses like you see on, you know, How to Flip This House and HGTV and all that kind of stuff. I'm the guy who finds those houses for those investors. So I go out, I find homeowners who need to sell their house and need to sell it very quickly. They don't have the capability to fix it up. And we buy that house and sell it to other investors who may not have the time or the resources or the energy to find that house on their own. We also have flipped, over the years, we've probably flipped about 150 or 200 homes ourselves, where we actually are the ones doing the fix up, making the ugly house very pretty. And just over time, we really narrowed down what our niche was. And that's what we call wholesaling. We find a homeowner, they need to sell quickly, and then we have a very unique process on how we move that property to other investors. So that's a little bit about, you know, our company, and a very brief, you know, description of how I got involved with it. And so that's what we do.
Yeah. And so I see that there's a couple people from the real estate industry that are here with us. We've got Daryl, of course, my former boss. I have to give my plug, Go Noble Mortgage. And then Ryan, who's an investor educator in Dallas. So hi, guys. Thank you for joining. So whenever you switched over, Matt, to being the sole owner of Senna House Buyers, can you tell me about that, right? You went from employee to owner of the company completely. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, you know, I had been working as an owner with partners for a number of years ahead of time. And, so it wasn't like a cut the cord, you go from employee to sole owner. And I was one of those employees who had that ownership mindset from the beginning, even before we even talked about ownership. Everything I did from, this is my company. And so I kind of already had that mindset. And so it wasn't a huge mindset shift for me necessarily, but, one of the things that, immediately from not having a part, or from having a partner to not having a partner is, you no longer share responsibilities. You no longer share, someone to bounce those ideas off of that is as ingrained in your company as you are, and so the pressure definitely steps up, but at the same time, you get to paint the vision that you want, and there is no bouncing it off of somebody else. And so that experience was, man, it was awesome and a roller coaster. Working through all of that, because you also have employees who are used to multiple owners, and now there's one, and there's, a unique challenge with that on, their personal relationship with you and their personal relationship with the former owner, as well as their working relationship with you and the former owner, and all that shifts. And so being able to be flexible and adjust to that and understand that, I had to get over, things are going to change in different ways that you can't anticipate. That was something that I've definitely had to go through.
Yeah. Next question was a little bit about, the ups and the downs as being a business owner. And you kind of touched on that a little bit, just like the adjustment and the transformation between you, yourself and your mind, and then you and your employees. But can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on just like in general, being a small business owner, the ups and the downs of that?
I don't know if anybody who's listening has ever seen that. I don't know if it's a meme or whatever you call them these days, but it's like this graph, and it goes way down and way up, and kind of just does all this craziness. And it's one day you're like, this is the best job in the world. I love what I'm doing. I'm making all this money. It's awesome. And then the next day you're like, oh God, I don't know what to do. I need to get a job. I need to shut everything down. I got to get at it. And it can be a roller coaster at times. Now, obviously the idea is that, that will smooth out. And then you get something like coronavirus that you can never anticipate anyways, which is that, like, the whole coronavirus thing that we're all going through as, as a community, as a world, is almost like what it's like running and owning a business. There's going to be times where stuff comes up that you never could have anticipated in any way, shape, or form. You just couldn't. And you have to adjust to it, and you have to be prepared for it, and you have to shift and move. And because you're not just working for yourself, you're feeding your families, you're feeding your vendors and your clients' families. And that's a huge responsibility that you have to undertake. Employees. That's right. And so there's more than just, your tail on the line. Everybody's is on the line, and it stops with you. And there's a level of pressure that I think many people are built for, and some people aren't built for, and that's okay. There's plenty of people out there who are way smarter than I am, but they don't want to deal with that, and they want to turn it off at 5:00 and go home. And that's just not something that we can do. Not to say you got to burn the midnight oil 7 days a week, because I definitely don't do that, and I don't want to do that. I do that by design. But there's times when somebody's got a question, if there's a fire, and if you're the owner, you're the one who's putting it out. Yeah. And so being prepared for that is important, especially if you're a new business owner or you're becoming a new business owner. The game really, really changes when you start hiring people, and you have that extra layer of responsibility that you got to take care of. Because this is one thing for me, like if I'm like have a bad month in sales or something like that, like I can deal with that. I've been dealing with that for a long time, right? But when your employees are dealing with problems, like that level of responsibility is something that I take very, very seriously. So that's the best way in the moment I can describe, being an entrepreneur and owning a business. It can be incredibly rewarding. It's like children, right? If anybody's listening that has kids, everybody's like, kids are great. And then some days you're like, I want to kick punch you. But it also is the most rewarding thing in the world. And you can't imagine the amount of love you can give a human being till you have a kid. And in some ways it's very much like that.
Yeah. When I talked to Daryl about owning a business, and when we started to have those conversations about me going into the either purchasing a franchise or owning a business, he was like, the best way that I can describe owning a business is like being back in college again. Your mind is constantly going. I think about it in college. I don't know about you. I'm like, oh, did I submit that paper? Oh crap, I've got a test due. Crap, I was supposed to do that. I've got a study group going on, whatever.
Oh yeah.
And so it's, when you are like, you got to be on the clock, you don't want to be on the clock 24/7, 7 days a week, but you can't, your mind can't help it. You're just going, going. And your analogy of the kids, same thing. When you have kids, it doesn't stop. You're not like, all right, guys, clocking out. Y'all have a good
taking
week.
Off today. Just not feeling dad duty today. Just not like how that works.
Commercials, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that. And I wanted to say hi to Rachel, my cousin Rebecca, Julie, Brett, Lindsay. Hi guys. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. I really appreciate it.
Up, guys.
Okay, next question. Let's talk about growth.
Okay.
And I know that your answer may be a little different from other people who, started from the get scratch, but as you have been part of the success with Senna House Buyers alongside Sam, who was the former co-owner with you guys, what would you say is like the one thing that took your company from elementary to junior high or junior high to high school?
I think the big thing that me and Sam were always on the same page about was when we first started, we knew we wanted it to be more than just us. We knew we were going to want to hire people and grow. And when we made that decision, we had discussions and we lived by this, but we were always reinvesting in the company. So if we had a big month, we weren't just pulling all the money out of the company to pay ourselves that, right? It was, okay, what can we reinvest in? What's that one thing we've been putting off that we can now do? What's that one marketing channel that we can use that we weren't using before? And so we were constantly reinvesting in growth. Like we weren't like Facebook or some tech startup that raised a bunch of outside capital. And so we just had money to burn on all kinds of stuff. All of our growth was done internally. And it was from reinvesting the profits of the company early on. And we had a path and we had a vision for what we wanted to do. And that helped guide the decisions that we made. So if we're going to invest in this or this, which one fits our vision more? And that's what we would invest in. And we did that for a long time. I mean, there was plenty of times when we had sales guys making a whole lot more money than we were making. But that was because that was the vision and we were growing, and that was the decision that we made. And we were totally fine with it. And that was probably the one, if I could pick one thing that really helped us grow very quickly was having that, okay, we don't need to make $1 million right now, right? We need to grow this company. And in doing that, we put our own personal stuff aside for the sake of the business, even though it was our company. And that was really helpful for us being able to grow quickly.
Okay. I've actually heard multiple people say that because I've been doing these interviews, for those that don't know, Matt is a good friend of mine. Him and his wife, Shanna, they have a son that is 3 months older than our redheaded angel, Ellie.
Ellie's future husband. I keep telling Erica she better start saving up for the wedding.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, so we've been really good friends, but Matt knows, that how this journey that I've been on, and he's got really personal intake on it. But as I've talked to different business owners prior to doing this Facebook Live series, people have always talked about the money. Where are you going to put the money when you start getting it? Are you going to spend it all and go crazy with it? Or are you going to invest it back in the business? And, I don't think like that. Well, not prior to.
You haven't been forced to think that way.
Yeah, exactly. I have that, I used to have that mentality of, you know, the kid that gets the money from the tooth fairy, and then you're like, what can I spend this on right now?
Yeah.
So yes, it's a very good thing. So quick, say hello, Kevin. Thank you for watching. Christine, I'm glad you know what it feels like. Hi, Clarissa. And for those that are sharing it, y'all, much love. Thank you so much for that. Okay, Matt, going back to my questions. So you're talking about using that money, investing it back into the business, and that's what allowed you to grow to that next level. So since you've been in business and since you've been an owner in this business, as of right now, where you're at today on Tuesday, April 28th, what are 3 things that you would have done differently if you could do anything different?
Oh man, I would have done so much differently, probably. You know, it's obviously hindsight's 2020, and you know, when you're starting a business or you're in like an early business and you're growing quickly, it is super exciting. And I don't know about anybody else watching, but I have shiny object syndrome real bad. And so every idea is a really good idea. And so we got to do this and we got to do that. And we got to do this and we got to do that. And, you know, you have so much passion and so much energy that it feels like you can do everything, right? But you can't. You really can't. And so I think one of the things that I really would have changed is I would have focused on less initiatives or less goals. So for instance, there was nothing for us to sit down in a monthly meeting to plan for the next quarter. And we got like 10, 12, 15 goals that we're going to hit for the next quarter. And we're like, boom, 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 let's go. And so what ended up happening is a lot of those things either didn't get done, didn't get started, didn't get completed. Most of the time they would get started, just not completed, right? And so a lot of the initiatives that we took on, or systems or process or different, you know, revenue streams, they weren't executed very well. They were executed okay, but it's because we were spread too thin and we weren't focused on really diving down into, okay, what are the 3, 4, maybe 5 super, super important initiatives that we can focus on? All the other stuff, if they're not ranked up there, we got to be able to put that on the back burner. We were just so hungry and we are just so driven that we really struggled with that. And I really struggled with that. And I still struggle with that today. You know, it's really hard for me to narrow those things down. But, you know, looking at the past on how, I guess, how much that affected us down the road, I didn't see that. You know, I was too green. I didn't have the hindsight at that point. And so now I really try to say, okay, what is the absolute most important thing, or 3 things or 5 things, but I don't let it get any more than that, depending on, you know, what I'm doing, if it's a day or a week or a month or a quarter or something like that. Oh, I wrote a couple of these down. Another thing I would have done early on, I would have invested more into operational systems. So, you know, when you grow and you grow quickly, especially, and your systems are a little chaotic just because it's kind of like everybody's doing it, because this is what it was. It was 3 of us and we just did everything. And so just by blunt force, we just got stuff done. It wasn't because we had some efficient process at first. Well, if you have a little chaotic process and you add fuel, i.e. sales and marketing to that, or new people, as in hiring new people, all you get is a bigger ball of that same chaotic process and same chaotic system. Okay. It's like pouring gasoline on the fire, right?
Uh-huh.
And so instead of investing in those systems early on, we almost did it backwards. We built a bigger machine and then went back and tried to like recreate the systems. And that was so much more difficult than it would have been if we just had that patience. But it went back to my first thing. We had too many initiatives. So we were grow. And then we had this, we had a system that wasn't working very efficiently because we grew it too fast and it wasn't dialed in first. So I would have switched those things. I would have dialed those systems, invested in those things with time, with money early, and then added the fuel to the fire. And I think it would have been, you know, a little bit of less of that kind of crazy roller coaster that we were on. Yeah. I think the third thing on that would be, I think I would have invested more into my people, more into training, more into developing. we would train people and we would develop them, but I think that we had some really great people that we didn't serve well early on. And we lost them, for multiple reasons. And looking back, I think we really could have poured into those people more. And now, whether they would have still be here or not, I don't know. There's no way to tell. But I do think that really starting early on, we could pour into those people a little bit more with, training, outside training specific to their roles, more development, whether that's personal development, professional development, whatever it is. And I think we could have really gotten more out of those people and maybe still had them today, some of them. But that's, you live and you learn,
Yeah.
So those are probably the three. If I could, pull back time, I probably would have done those three things a little bit differently.
All right. And if you are tuning in and watching this, I hope that you wrote those three things down. We're running low on time, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Real quick, what have you learned about yourself as a person, Matt, as you've been a business owner? One thing.
I'm kind of crazy. I guess I knew that. What have I learned about myself? Let's see. I have really learned that I do have that shiny object syndrome. It is very, very difficult for me, and I did not think I had this. It's very difficult for me to narrow down and focus on just one thing because I just want to get everything accomplished. You give me a list of stuff and I just want to go hammer, 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 hammer. And it's not always the best thing to do. And so really getting honest with myself and learning that about myself has been vital. I mean, I have to get focused. There's no way you can do everything. And I think I didn't realize that early on. You kind of got Superman syndrome because you're just so excited and fired up, and really learning like, hey, you really don't have time to do everything. Like, you have to pick some priorities. You can't just say yes. One of my mentors, he always tells me, I can tell you how successful you're going to be by the amount of things you say no to. And at first I didn't really get it. I'm like, okay, like I don't get it. But now I get it. Like, you have to say no to some stuff. You just have to. It's not always the right time for that. It's not always the right time for that hire. It's not always the right time for that new marketing thing. And so really getting back to what's the end goal, what's the focus, what's the mission has helped me kind of reel that back in for myself. So.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. I don't think that I have, that's, what did you call it? Shiny
object syndrome.
I don't think I have that. But it goes back to the book that you love to recommend, The One Thing.
That's a good book.
Oof.
Yeah.
If you have not read The One Thing, and if you're not a reader, it is for free on YouTube. Just type in The One Thing. I can't remember the name of the author, but
Gary Keller.
There you go.
Yep.
It's an audio book, 5 hours long. As you're driving, listen to it. It is game changer.
Another one thing that I do is I've been using journals to like get stuff done, like a daily journal and stuff. But I use this one, this is so off topic, but I guess it's not off topic. It's called the Focus Planner, the Full Focus Planner. But it makes me pick a daily and a weekly big three. And so the idea behind the big three is, if you got literally nothing else done but those three things that week, that day, then it could still be a productive day. And man, that has forced me to really narrow down my days and my weeks and my months. And that's been a huge help for that issue that I have of, being all over the place and having shiny object syndrome. And so I really just focus on getting those things done first, and then I can get all the other little stuff done. So pro tip.
Hello, Alex, Jim. I can't see the rest of the comments. I'm sorry. But yes,
you so popular.
Rachel talking about Gary Keller. Yes. So yes, Rachel knows. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. Rachel's read that book.
It's good.
It's very good.
All righty. Well, I will go ahead and open it up to questions. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I can't expand the question box.
I can't. Yeah. So are they on Facebook, these questions?
Yeah, they're on
Okay.
Facebook. And so if you guys have any questions, please
Let's see if I can see them.
I'm going to log into my phone right here.
Yeah, I'm looking in here.
If I can see any comments.
Yeah, so on Facebook, these questions,
sorry. Carla agreeing with your 3 tips. So good job, Matt. Chris Bello, dropping fire. That's right, we are.
Bello, my man.
Chris, love hearing about tricks, tips, and tools small business owners use. I think that's what he was trying to say. Any other questions, my friends, my Facebook friends?
Alex with the American flags.
I know.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'll keep my eye out. But Matt, thank you so much for
Thank you. This was fun.
With me answering these questions and dropping some hot knowledge here. Okay, so Jim, if training and development is in the top 3, how % of revenue is that? Or maybe what % of revenue is that?
I guess he's saying like what % of revenue would you spend on training and development? We can roll with that.
Yeah.
So it depends. So a lot of factors are going to come into play here. It's going to depend on how many people you have, what industry you're in, what kind of profit margins are you already operating on? If you're a business if you're doing 50 grand a month in revenue, but you're only making about 5 to 10 grand in net income, it's going to be hard for you to say, well, I'm going to put 20% of my revenue to training and development. So I think you got to sit down and decide, how important is that? Is it something that you can invest in now? I would say I would look more at probably a gross profit margin than a revenue target. Because once you start taking chunks out of revenue, it can get to a big number pretty quickly. But it all depends. What were your quarterly goals coming into the quarter or to the year? Was it to hire people? Was it to develop people? Was it to start marketing more? Different business owners are going to be at different stages. So for my business, I'd say on a gross profit basis, I'd probably spend about 5% of my gross profit on training and development of my people, just consistently. Now, you can spend that on really dumb things, or you can spend it on really good things. I think one suggestion I would have is in your one-on-one conversations with your employees or your direct reports, depending on the size of your organization, what are the things that they want to get better at? What are the things that they want to improve on? If you believe in this, which I'm a believer in this, if it's a personal development thing that doesn't seem like it's going to affect your business from a direct thing, like your accountant going to an accountant training or something like that, but it's more of a personal development thing. I'm a big believer in that and helping your people become just better people overall. Because if you have better people that are happier and healthier, then they're going to perform better for you anyways.
Oh, absolutely. Which I think ties into company culture. And
absolutely does.
A whole other topic.
Yeah, we could spend hours on that.
Write a book even. So Daryl said, in regards to what we're talking about, I'd use a flat figure per employee.
That's also a good metric, because then you can plan and control a little better. In my business, my revenue is not very predictable, so it's hard to do it on a percentage basis because you feast or famine months. So,
okay,
good suggestion.
Lindsay, you or Erica hiring if I get the layoff notice in oil and gas? I love you.
I don't know. Send us a message. Let us know if that happens.
Yeah. No, girl, you ain't getting laid off. You know that. Please. Let's see. Rachel, curious to hear how you balance work life, especially with having young toddlers, and also entrepreneur. Girl.
You tell me how you got it figured out. I'll buy that course. That's one of the shiny objects I would buy.
Positive, use the color chart, positive reinforcement.
One thing that I will say this, one thing that I do is I've let myself off the hook. So I used to tell people, sometimes I feel like I'm in this perpetual state of guilt where if I'm not at the office, I feel like I should be at the office more. And if I'm not at home, I feel like I should be at home more. So if I'm working a lot, then the business is doing good. And, my employees feel, like I'm plugged in, but I feel like I'm guilty because I'm not home being a husband and a father. And so I've let myself off the hook for that and understood that there's going to be times where I have more time for family. And then there's going to be times where I just have to have more time for the business. And so I think, especially for the married folks out there, really having a spouse that is supportive and understands kind of the life of the entrepreneur, and that there's times where I got to take the call at 7:30. I'm sorry. I just got to take the call. And
sorry, Shanna.
And having someone who has your back for that is huge, because there are times where I feel like I can be more present at home. I can be a better father and all that kind of stuff. And so, I set some guidelines for myself. I really try to limit, when I'm on the phone, when we're doing dinner and we're doing, time at night, and that I can get to it once, the shower and the nighttime routine's done and things like that. And then if there's nothing going on at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, I can be, especially now with family being home from the quarantine, I can go be family guy in the middle of a Tuesday, And so I've allowed myself, and this was personal growth for me, to not feel that guilt and really communicate well with Shanna, with my wife, about the things that are super important and I have to step away, and the other things of, what, that can wait till later. That can wait till tomorrow. So I do my best. I'm by no stretch great at it or perfect at it by any stretch of the imagination, but I do the best that I can. And, having a supportive spouse is, man, that's super important.
Yeah, definitely. Supportive friends.
Yes, absolutely.
Fellow business owners, family, my mom, my dad. I mean, yeah really. Alrighty, and then Fabian asked about culture.
Oh man,
I will talk about that. But not tonight because it's now 8:06 and I don't want to take away anybody else's time. But Fabian, I got you. We will come up with that, I promise. Well,
actually, I think Brett's on this call. He's doing something on culture sometime soon.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was tagged on my Facebook earlier. So if you want to hear about that, go to my Facebook timeline. Brett tagged me. He's doing a webinar on that. So tune into that. So thank you for reminding me. All right. This is, again, like I said, the very first interview of my 10 unique business owner interview series. Our next one is going to be this Thursday, April 30th. And it's going to be with this guy named Nathan, and he owns 3 Pilates locations here in Houston. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say, especially owning that many locations. He's got lots of. I've taken Pilates 4 times. I'm trying, okay? And then our girl Heather hopped on. Hello, Heather. Last but not least, if you found this helpful, if you enjoyed watching this, please share it. Tag a friend that you think could find value in this. If you did find something really valuable, make sure that you comment in the section, in the comment section. But other than that, you guys are awesome. Love all of you. Matt, thank you so much for spending your evening with me. Give your wife and a kid a kiss for me. You guys have a great night. You and everyone on Facebook. Woo, woo! Interview number 1 done.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Nice. Bye, guys.